Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with the lovely Becky Hoschek, and we're talking about the beliefs that are holding you back in your business. And this is a really powerful episode, very actionable too. So really excited for you to tune in. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. Hey guys, welcome back. Elizabeth McCravey here. And before I play this interview, I want to tell you a little bit about Becky because we dive straight into the content in this episode, but I want you to know, who is this amazing woman you're learning from? So I want to give you a little context first. So Becky is a life coach for ambitious women who do all the things marriage, motherhood, business, and more. And she does private one-to-one coaching and then is also a fellow podcaster over at Beyond Happy. And you'll actually hear us talk in the interview about a big thing both of our podcasts have in common. So that's really fun. But she's a podcaster too. And Becky helps women get unstuck and create lives that feel as good on the inside as they look on the outside. And she applies psychology, mindset, faith, all of that good stuff to focus on all the big things in life, the little and the everyday and in between. And she focuses on thought work and mindset to help clients feel better for good. And some background, before she launched her coaching practice, she actually served clients for 15 years as a copywriter, designer, and marketing consultant for major brands like Better Homes and Gardens, and then a bunch of small creative businesses. And she also owned a family photography business for a decade. So she knows business. When we're talking business, just know that she's done a whole lot of different stuff in, again, copywriting, design, marketing, and then also as a photographer before she became a life coach. So she lives in Bloomington, Illinois, and she works from home as a life coach and then lives with her husband and 3 kids, which, by the way, her kids are adorable. And she has twin boys and a daughter. So she really has her hands full. And we'll talk about that some on this episode. So you guys, without further ado, I'm going to play it. Again, we're talking about 5 beliefs that are keeping you stuck in your business. Really good stuff. This is one you might want to take notes on. Let's play the audio. All right, you guys, I have here with me virtually Becky Hoschek. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So you guys heard me introduce Becky in the intro, and you already know how amazing she is. She has so much value she's going to bring us today. And as I said, Becky is a life coach, and you guys know I love the life coaching industry so much. And I want to read this little blurb about you, Becky. So she works with ambitious women doing all the things marriage, motherhood, business, and more. And today we're talking about business and beliefs about your business. But I actually think the beliefs that we're going to talk about will apply really well to things like your marriage, your faith life, motherhood, all of it. So even if you're not a business owner, just know that we're going to have something here for you today. So much awesome stuff. So I'm really excited to learn from you, Becky. And first, for all the women listening, let's share the couple of fun things we have in common. So Becky is a template buyer, and you're one of the early, I think pretty early, website template buyers from MShop.
Yes, it was, I want to say late 2018.
Yeah, I think when they first came, you have the Reese template, and
yes,
you just kind of redid some stuff on your site.
I did. I really gave it a whole new makeover. So when I first implemented it, I was kind of figuring out more who I was reaching and who my people were and just the overall aesthetics of my brand and just kind of letting that evolve. So I used the main look of the template as it came at the beginning. And then over time, especially in the last month, have really revamped all of it. Total makeover.
Yeah. It looks so good. So you guys, that's the first call to action for you is go look at Becky's website. It really shows, I think, too, how diverse the templates can be when you want to have fun. So adding your own design flair to it, which is what you did. So It's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. I love it. I love looking at it. And we have the same podcast editor.
Yes. Natalie. Woo woo.
So shout out to Natalie. We love you.
She is the
And
best.
I found Natalie through you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another connection piece. And then also, you guys, I have personally worked with Becky. She coached me with her one-on-one coaching service. I guess that was last year, about a year ago.
Yeah, I feel like it was springtime.
Yes. So we have a lot of connections here, and I'm really excited to be able to bring Becky to you guys so she can teach you the way she's taught me and all of that stuff. So to get us started, Becky, let's introduce the topic. I think a good place to begin would be talking about how thoughts and beliefs are connected, because I know you have some really good input on that.
Yes. So we're talking about these beliefs that can really keep us stuck in our businesses. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that when we are entrepreneurs, especially in the beginning stages, we are the business. And so thoughts and beliefs are everything. And there's really no boundaries between your personal life and your business life when you are doing all the things and making it work on your own. And so what I love to teach my clients is the power of thoughts. Mindset is so key because when we learn a little bit more about neuroscience, how our brain works, and the power behind thoughts, our thinking is critical to why we feel what we feel and why we do what we do. Thoughts really are just sentences in our brain. A lot of times we think that we're kind of at the mercy of thoughts just happening to us, but we have a whole lot more control over them than we think. So if thoughts are just sentences in your brain, thoughts that it offers you, then beliefs are thoughts that we've just practiced over and over. And our brain loves repetition. So when you believe something enough, it becomes really concrete. And a lot of times we don't realize that we are believing things to be true that aren't actually truth. And I love to tell clients that just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true.
I love that. I love that statement as a reminder. That's a good thinking about beliefs to adopt would be just because you believe it doesn't mean it's a fact and true. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And our thoughts create our feelings. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yes.
Or do you feel like that's relevant to the rest of it?
Very much so. So because a lot of us, as kids, we aren't taught much about our feelings. We aren't really taught even how to feel them, the value of that. A lot of times as a culture, we believe the best thing is if you're feeling something, especially that's not so pleasant, something that doesn't feel good, that the goal is to push that away, to pretend it's not there, to resist it, to do things to not have to feel it. And that's why we end up seeing things, everything from procrastinating to just feeling stuck in our lives in general, even to why we zone out on our phones for an hour and why we kind of reach for food or overworking or some of these activities that I like to call buffers, which are really activities that we opt to do because in the moment, they keep us from feeling uncomfortable. They keep us from experiencing what's really going on if we were to kind of peel back the layers and be honest with ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I guess it's called the thought model, but you guys have heard me talk about this on the podcast, but the concept of our thoughts create our feelings, create our actions, equal the results we get in our lives. So that's kind of the foundation behind what we're talking about today is that the thought part of that, and then thoughts over and over again become beliefs.
Yes. And so what happens is most of us, when we're wanting to make change, when we can tell that something's not quite right and we're wanting to make some changes in our lives, we kind of default to action. What do I need to do differently to make this change? And sometimes that can work for a little while, but when you're making a change and trying to do it based on action, based on willpower, it doesn't last very long. It's really easy to give up and get burnt out because you're not really getting to the root of what the real problem is. You kind of stay on the surface level and are trying to solve for it in a way that really doesn't serve you very well because we do know that our thoughts create our feelings, and it's our feelings that lead us to do or not do anything that we do. You can see how there's this ripple effect and how our thought life plays out into our entire life. So it's critical to understand this incredible power that our thoughts have and how that impacts how you're showing up each day.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so you want to dive into the first belief?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so you guys, to recap again, we're going to go through 5 different beliefs that are keeping your business stuck. So these are things to not believe anymore, like thoughts to reverse. And Becky's also going to be giving us like alternative thoughts to try on instead. So tell us the first one.
The first belief that keeps us stuck in business is the belief, I don't know. This is a belief that our brains kind of offer us probably way more often than we even realize. And it kind of is twofold. What it can look like on the macro level, kind of the big picture of your life and of your business, is believing things like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know how to do it. And really letting that keep us where we are and not taking action. See, what our brains love more than anything is to be comfortable and to do what's familiar. And when we are trying to do new things, trying to figure new things out on our business, deciding what direction to go, that's hard because it's new. And your brain will default to, let's just hang out where we know what's going on. And the thought, I don't know, feels really safe to your brain because that means it doesn't have to do anything new, right? But it also is incredibly detrimental to a business because if you're believing I don't know and I don't know what to be doing, you're not going to get any traction and ever move forward. So on a big picture level, when you're thinking about business goals and where you want to be and even why you're doing what you're doing, when you realize how often you're saying, I don't know, awareness of it is so invaluable because then you can do something about it. But when you find yourself in that space, sometimes you just feel stuck and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've learned all the things. I feel like I'm on track. But that thought can really shift everything. Now, on a smaller level, that belief, I don't know, can play out in your everyday by showing up, let's say, when you're getting up in the morning and trying to figure out what to do with your day. A lot of times your brain is going to say, I don't know. And we find ourselves getting caught up in having like 12 different options of things that we could be working on. And that can create a feeling of overwhelm. And we don't take action from a place of overwhelm. So instead of making any kind of progress and just picking one thing and running with it, we'll just kind of stay right where we are and do nothing instead of just choosing one thing. I was talking to a client yesterday, actually, who was navigating this very thing and feeling like she's not getting anything done in her days right now. And I asked her, like, what's coming up for her? Like, what is she feeling a lot? And she shared that she's feeling overwhelmed. So we walked through like that it's not everything on her to-do list that's creating the overwhelm, right? It's the thought that I don't know what to do next.
That's so true, especially right now with having more time. It can be like, I don't know what to do with the time or having a different schedule even. Yeah.
Yes. And so when we can even just recognize that that thought is there and realizing how it's not serving us because, as I said, that thought, I don't know, creates this feeling of overwhelm, confusion. And I like to refer to overwhelm and confusion as what I call indulgent emotions, meaning we can kind of dive in head first and go there. It's kind of like you get on the hamster wheel of spinning and they're not emotions that really serve us well. And it doesn't mean that you always have to feel good for emotions to serve you well, but confusion and overwhelm aren't helpful because they don't really do anything for us that's useful.
Yeah, it's just true, like, hey, I'm like stuck here type of emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, especially with that example you gave of in the morning, if you feel like I don't know what to do, like with my day, that really is like, agreed, like an indulgent because it's like, it's unnecessary overwhelm that it creates. And you're like making things harder for yourself right when you wake up than it would need to be. So,
and it's crazy when we stop and look at our days and how much time that we can get wrapped up in spending in that place. A lot of times we feel like I don't have enough time to get XYZ done. And it's usually because we're spending all this time in this place that's not serving us at all.
Yeah. So what thoughts would you recommend? So like you guys too, thinking about all these things Becky's telling us, like try to remember and pay attention after this episode's over of like when you have the thought, I don't know what to do next, all of that kind of stuff. And then think about these thoughts that Becky's about to tell. So what thoughts do you have as an alternative to this one?
Yes. So I talk to my clients about trying on new thoughts, like you're going shopping and bringing some outfits into a dressing room. And so
that's so fun.
Try them on. They're not always going to fit you, but just try them on and see what fits. Everyone is going to be different. You may take what I'm going to offer and come up with a version of your own that's a little different. But whatever speaks to you, whatever feels true and believable is what matters. So in terms of thoughts to try on to kind of combat that belief, I don't know, ones I offer are I'm learning how to blank. Might be I'm learning how to work from home for the first time. I'm learning how to set up a Facebook ad. I'm learning how to design one of Elizabeth's templates. I am learning how is so powerful because it makes you feel more equipped and capable. And you acknowledge that you're in a process of doing something, learning something, becoming something, but you don't set yourself up for kind of failure and self-sabotage by believing that you just don't know how. Another version of that is I'm figuring out how to XYZ. It just feels more encouraging, and the belief is there that's backed with some self-confidence that, hey, this is new. I've got this. I'm just figuring it out right now. And then the other one I love is my next right step is blank. So a lot of times that thoughts, I don't know, comes into play when maybe we're taking on like a new big thing that just feels like so much and we don't even know where to start because it feels so big. In that case, I love the thought, my next right step is blank, because it kind of breaks it down and turns it into like something that's more bite-sized and doable versus this big, heavy thing that we feel like is looming over us that we don't know how to do.
Yeah, I love that one. And thinking about like a business example, like if we're talking about, say, I don't know how to do Facebook ads, because that's actually something I'm dealing with right now in my business of like hiring someone for that. The alternative of like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed because I don't know who to hire. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get started would be my next right step is to maybe research different people and try to schedule a call with them.
Yes.
And then like, that's all you have to do right then. It doesn't have to be this like thing that you're constantly thinking about. You just do the next right step.
Yes. And when we talk about just building up our confidence and our capability that we can do things, we can do hard things, having a small action step like that, like if you put that on your schedule for the day, I'm going to reach out to this Facebook ads person, and you can check that off, it really does add to your feeling of like, I've got this, I can do this. And it makes it feel much more doable and realistic, rather than something that you want to avoid. Because a lot of times we don't want to do the things that are new and hard because they're not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so also, so we have 3 thoughts there, but then you also have a question you recommend asking that goes with those. I really love this question. So tell everyone that.
Yes. So if you really feel stuck and like, I don't know, feels really, really true to you in a moment, then try asking yourself, but what if I did know? What would I do if I did happen to know? There's something about the wording of this that makes it feel like less committal. Like it's kind of like you're just floating out the possibility. And I think too, it's because our brain doesn't like to be wrong at all. So if you float that out there, like, but what if I did know? What would I do? It feels like a safer way to explore the options, to explore the possibilities of what your next right step might be.
Yeah. I really love that question. And you guys listening, I probably the week before you hear this episode, you'll hear me do a launch recap episode talking about my last launch. And this was a question I had to ask myself with the question of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Should I launch now? Should I wait? Is it the right timing? The question of, but what if I did know? Like, what if I did know the right answer to this? And it creates so much clarity and allows you to not stay stuck in like the confusion of what should I do next, which is kind of where I was for a little bit.
Yes.
But instead, like moving forward and taking action. So that's a really powerful one.
Yes. And kind of to go off of that, another question you can ask is, when you think about this thing, like let's say you have a goal or something you're working toward, you can ask yourself, like, what does the future me who's on the other side of this thing, what would she do? What would she say to do right now? And it's really crazy. Like, but when we draw from ourselves and who we see ourselves being from that place, we can get a lot of insight and knowledge that I think it kind of removes the emotion from like where we are in the moment, but using, her future wisdom. So you could, when thinking about a launch, say like, okay, like this feels kind of crazy right now. I'm not sure what to do. The me who's already on the other side of this launch, what would she tell me to do right now?
Yeah, and I've done a podcast episode about that.
Okay.
I think about really, I mean, I know you know this concept too, but the writing letters to your future self and then from your future self to you right now.
Yes.
That kind of allows you to like get more in the zone of that weird thought process of like, hey, like here's, 32-year-old Elizabeth, I'm going to write a letter to myself right now.
Yes.
What would she say? What advice would she give? Because there is so much wisdom that you have within you that your future self can kind of tell you about.
Mm-hmm. I know. It is almost bizarre how helpful and therapeutic that exercise is. It's like you tap into, like you said, this wisdom that you didn't even realize was there.
Okay, that first one, you guys, we could stop right there. And that would be like
we could have done. Yeah, we could have dedicated an entire episode to. I don't know.
Yes, and you guys, in the show notes for this episode, I'll be sure to like have some of this typed out if you need to reference later. Of like, wait, what were those thoughts again? So we'll have that there for you. Okay, so Becky, let's talk about the second thought that's holding us back in our business.
Yes,
or second belief.
Second belief thought. Yes, is this isn't working. This is something that we can kind of easily go to when we feel we're in a place in our business and we feel stuck. Maybe we aren't sure what's gone wrong or how to make it better. We kind of go to this default place of we just want to write it off as like, well, this just isn't working. It could be a specific marketing activity that you're doing, a certain offer that you have. A lot of times we'll just kind of throw in the towel and say, I'm done. This clearly just isn't working. Yeah. I don't know why. And I don't, know what to do next. So it feels easier just to kind of wash our hands of it and be done. The reason it's a problem is because it kind of transfers the responsibility for your business onto something outside of your control. If you tell yourself and you believe that this business isn't working, for example, you're blaming the business, and it feels good in the moment to blame something outside of ourselves because then we don't feel responsible. And it feels like we can just be almost the victim to whatever's happening when it feels outside of our control. And when we feel like we can't do anything about it, blaming it feels like the natural next step. But problem is that when we blame something outside of ourselves, when we say like this ad just isn't working, or nobody wants to buy my product because I just am not offering the right thing, or this business isn't working, we hand over our power to do anything about it at all. Nothing will change because we've written it off as something that we can't do anything about. So the only way to get our power back and to be able to do something about it is by being really careful about the thoughts we're choosing to believe.
Yeah, like taking responsibility for whatever it is that you're dealing with. And that's such a good example too of marketing activities. I know we can say that about Instagram just isn't working for my business, or I just can't do a Facebook Live, and my email marketing is horrible, or whatever it is. But yeah, it puts you in victim mode.
Yes.
So what thoughts would you say to counteract that?
Yes. So when you believe that it isn't working, first you want to remember that your brain is literally going to believe that to be truth. It's going to give you all the evidence to show you all the reasons why you're right, why the business isn't working, why the ad isn't working, why the offer isn't working. So the very first thing I offer to clients is, if they come to me and say, I need your help, like my business is falling apart, nothing's working, I say, okay, hold on a minute. Tell me the facts. What are the facts? Because a lot of times when we get in our heads, everything becomes very dramatic. And it could be that you're making it mean that your business isn't working because your Facebook page didn't get any likes this week, or because only one person bought your offer and you wanted 5 of them to. So when we look at the facts and we can get really specific about what that means, we can do something about numbers. There's a big difference between, I like to say that business is the combination of only 2 things. There's numbers and there's thought drama. There is the concrete factual information that we can do something about, and then there's everything that we make it mean with our thoughts. So focusing on the facts is really helpful because it empowers us to kind of look back and have some hard data to actually work from and do something about. And then the other that I like to have people use is really being curious rather than being judgmental. And so looking at a business problem you might be having and saying, it's really interesting that only 10 people bought my offer this week, rather than beating yourself up for it and wanting to quit life because you feel like everything's failing. There's a really big difference, and it's the difference that means everything.
Yeah, I love that. So trying the thought, it's interesting that, and then just thinking about like, what are the facts of that thing? Another thing I thought about just now, you were saying, talking about facts specifically, is that I think the reason our brain likes to make a huge story, like making the facts into some kind of drama, is because facts aren't fun. They're not that interesting.
Right.
Like the fact of something feels like, oh, well, that's not it. I need to make it into like this more interesting thing for my brain.
Yes.
And like, then we create a whole drama around it. But the truth is, like, the facts are the base of all of it, and your brain's creating the drama. So going back to the facts can really calm you down.
Absolutely. And the kind of domino effect that you can go down when you're taking something as simple as how many people opened your email, what you can make that mean if you just kind of let your brain run with it is amazing. It can just be a number of people who opened a message filled with words and sentences, and we can make that mean that we're not meant to be doing this, that we've got everything wrong, that we have no business trying to run a business, that everything's falling apart. We can make it mean so much that really doesn't serve us or our business at all.
Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. information. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Yeah. One thing you just made me think of too that I think this really applies to is when you have a bad review from someone, or one of your clients had a bad experience, you can like take that one isolated fact and then make it into, I'm not meant to be a business owner, I'm horrible at what I do, and those sorts of things. And you guys have heard me talk about that on some of the episodes where I've talked about harder client situations.
Yeah.
And that really is your brain making it all mean something that it doesn't have to.
Yes. So the fascinating thing about our brains is that it is wired to be predisposed to what's negative because its job is to solve problems and look for threats. And that's why you could get 100 compliments in one day, but the one thing that's going to stay with you is, like you said, that one negative comment, that one difficult client. In a sea of all the good things people are saying, your brain hones in on that one bad thing because it sees it as a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, that's very true. So, okay, so that's our second one, you guys. This isn't working.
Yep.
And the thought is it's interesting that, and kind of exploring it, making it more about the facts. So let's talk about this third one. I feel like this third one is a really, really big one. I'm sure all of us have felt at some point and thought at some point.
Yes. So the third one is the belief, I don't have enough time. And we believe this is a fact. I have had clients get argumentative with me and say, no, you don't understand my life. Like, I don't have enough time. Why it's a problem to believe this is, number one, it isn't true. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. If we're not getting something done that we would like to, it's simply a matter of choosing priorities, not needing more time. And I feel like we're seeing this play out in life right now. A lot of us are working from home, and a lot of us are really limited to not doing a whole lot. We probably have more time in our days than we ever have before. And I've seen a couple memes floating around, one of them being like, I always said that the reason my house isn't clean is because I never had the time. But now I'm realizing that that wasn't really the reason, right? Because everyone's got all the time right now. And if the house isn't clean, time was never the issue. That's just a lie that we're telling ourselves, but it doesn't serve us at all. Our thought, I don't have enough time, creates some really negative feelings. It makes us feel overwhelm, anxiety. We get stuck and kind of go back to that place the same way that we do when we believe that I don't know. It kind of takes you back to being stuck because you just believe this is true. I just like, it's never going to work because I just don't have time. And that's just the way it is. And it's fascinating because it's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I see clients struggling with. When you believe that you just need more time, you're again placing the blame on something that's outside of your control.
Yeah, avoiding responsibility with that. Yeah, I think something too to remember with this one is that like the reason we think this is because there's something in it for us, because it's like we're taking the responsibility, we're taking the blame, we're scapegoating and making time an excuse.
Yes.
So I think that's helpful too to remember like, hey, like I'm thinking this because I think it's benefiting me in some way because I'm putting the responsibility on this outside thing outside of myself. But really that is just keeping you stuck because until you take responsibility for whatever it is that you're using time as the excuse for, you're never going to get what you're wanting out of your business in that area.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the thoughts to try on instead. Some of these are literally like, I love a lot of these. So yeah, you tell them to us.
Okay. So the first is I get to steward my time. Now, I didn't really explain this I get to concept, but I love reframing thoughts and going from I have to or I need to I get to. And so you can do that with pretty much any thought where you're feeling like, oh, I have to do this today. I have to do this thing that I don't want to do. Reframing it and saying, I get to, puts a totally different spin. It feels very different. And so that in itself, I get to steward my time, is such a better use of your thoughts and your thought energy than believing that you just don't have enough time. And I think it takes your power back. Like you're reminding yourself, oh, I get to steward my time. I'm the one in control here. I get to decide how I spend the next hour, the next day, the next week. And so when you do that, you're much more likely to come from a place of being intentional, purposeful, and really stewarding your time in a way that aligns with your values and your priorities. The next I touched on a bit ago, but I have the same 24 hours each day that everyone else does. I heard somebody say once that like Beyonce has the same 24 hours as everyone else.
Yeah. Like, I was literally thinking of that meme when you said that.
Like we all have the same amount of time. Any belief that says otherwise is just a lie that you're believing and that isn't serving you. Another one I love is there is always enough time for the things that I need time for. I love this on a couple of levels. One, it makes you mindful of where your priorities are, but also it makes you kind of look at how you are spending your time and makes you more aware of maybe things you're spending time on that you'd rather not be. And knowing that that's a great thing to know because you could free up more time for the things that matter. Yeah. And then the last one, I get to choose how I spend my time. Everything we do as an adult, we are making the decision to do. And someone challenged me on this one time and said, well, like, what about like, I don't want to pay my taxes, but I pay my taxes. And I said, but you do. You want to pay your taxes because you don't want to go to jail, right? You don't want to pay a big fine. Like everything we do, even if, let's say, we do something for someone else because we know it means something to them. Like maybe it's not our favorite thing or what we would choose to do, even like a family member or a spouse. Like we're still deciding that we want to do that thing for a reason. We're not being forced. There's always that ownership that we get to choose.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, okay. Those are all so powerful. One way I like to phrase, I guess it was the third one you said, is I'll like literally, guys, even write this in your journal if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like writing about how, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time to get all this done. My business is so overwhelming. I'll write, I have exactly as much time as I need to do fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that's stressing you out, like you have exactly as much time as you need. And the truth is things take as long as you let them take too. I think that's another thing to think about with the time thing. If you're going to give yourself a whole day to write an email to your list, it's going to take a whole day.
Yeah.
If you give yourself an hour, it'll probably take an hour.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So those are awesome. Okay. Let's go to number 4.
Number 4 has everything to do with one word, and it is I'm just. And it can play out in a lot of different ways. It could be I'm just a writer. I'm just a mom. I'm just one person. I'm just self-educated. I've heard it as, oh, what are you up to? Oh, I'm just doing this little photography thing. It's nothing. I just have this little side hustle, or it's just a little thing I started. The problem is that when we use the word just, it automatically minimizes what we're sharing. It's a way that we play small, that we really can just take away from what we're doing. That might be something that we're really excited about, but I don't know, it feels like we don't really want to step in fully to maybe a new thing that we're doing. Maybe we aren't super confident about it or aren't really believing in our value and what we have to offer. And so we kind of default to minimizing it, playing it down with, oh, I'm just doing this thing, or I'm just this. And when we believe this, when we have these beliefs that use the word just, we tend to believe it. So when we believe that we don't really have much to offer, that what we're doing isn't a very big deal, we avoid growing. We kind of resist maybe the things that we're called to be doing and working on. We don't often set goals, or if we do, we set really low levels of expectation for ourselves. It kind of can be like mocking humility, and that like it can kind of seem humble, like, oh, no big deal, I'm just doing this little thing. But really that's masking an insecurity and a belief that isn't helpful.
Yeah, that's such a true one. And that was a huge struggle for me early in my business, this whole I'm just a. And I think the reason I did it is kind of what you're saying, a little bit of mock humility, but also I thought that's what other people thought of me. So it was like, I'm just going to go ahead and think like, you guys all think I'm just a recent college grad. You guys all think I'm too young to do this. And the truth is like, people probably aren't actually thinking that much about you.
Right.
That's kind of what I learned pretty quick is like, okay, no one actually cares that much about my age. I'm actually just holding myself back by like having that thought.
It is true too. Yeah.
Really good.
We do tend to believe that we know what other people are thinking about us. But the truth is that the only thing someone knows to believe about us is based on how we're showing up and what we're presenting to the world. So if we doubt ourselves, if we think we're just doing this thing or just out of school and not knowing what we're doing, or just a mom who's decided to start a business online, for example, that's what we're going to bring to the table. That's what other people are going to see. We think it works the other way around. We think that other people define who we are, but it's really the opposite.
Yeah. And going back to the thoughts, creating our feelings, creating the actions, it's like when you're thinking this way, that's how you're going to end up showing up as if that were the truth, because that's what your belief is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what thoughts would you say to try on?
So some of them are just as simple as say the same thought or think the same thought, but just take out the word just. Own who you are and what you want to be doing. I am a writer. I am a business owner. I am an entrepreneur. You want to practice this thought and repeat it, because repeating it is what will help the thought become a belief. And believing it will create the feeling of confidence that you're going to have to be successful in what you're setting out to do.
Yeah, I love that. So letting that be the thing, but taking out the word just. Yeah, that kind of goes back to like de-dramatizing things and going back to the facts, even like we talked about a minute ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that one. Okay, let's do the fifth one, our final belief.
So number 5 is the thought, I can't say no. And we might think this when, let's say there's an opportunity to learn, an educational opportunity, like an online course, free training, free masterclasses that maybe pop up throughout our days. We fear missing out, and we feel like no isn't an option. Another one is an invitation to collaborate with someone else, being invited to speak or serve someone else's group or business. And it can even seep into your inbox, where maybe you have potential clients wanting to work with you, but asking for a lower rate or asking you to do something that you don't normally offer. And why we entertain this, why we don't want to say no, is both because of the fear of missing out, namely in business, fear of missing out on new clients or things that we see as potential opportunities for our businesses. And then also we do it for people pleasing. It's a belief that by saying yes to someone, that we are going to be able to influence how they think about us.
That one's so huge. So yeah, tell us a bit about like, I know you've kind of already spoken to this, but like why that ends up being such a problem, like some ways that plays out.
Yeah. Well, the biggest is that when we make a decision out of fear or obligation, which is what we're doing when we're choosing something, when we're saying yes because we have a fear of missing out, or we're worried about what other people are going to think about us if we say no, then we aren't coming from a place that's being genuine and authentic to ourselves. And so we say yes in the moment, but what happens later is that we end up feeling really resentful for giving away our time, our energy, our resources for those reasons that didn't really feel truly compelling to us, that aren't really in line with what we value most. And so, yes, we're saying yes, but then we're regretting it because we were doing it for the wrong reasons. And so
Yeah.
when we do this, and when we are running businesses and wanting to steward our time and energy, if we're saying yeses to things that we wish we were saying no to, then it's not running a business that's in alignment with our priorities. We end up feeling really frustrated. A lot of times it can lead to overwhelm, because if you are saying a yes to someone else is always a no to something, right? So you're usually saying a yes to someone else's need, but that's going to mean a no to yourself, a no to working on something that you really feel like should be a bigger priority, putting your own business work on hold, maybe taking time away from your family and personal life because now you're playing catch up, now that you've overcommitted yourself. That can create a lot of overwhelm. We just end up feeling frustrated and overwhelmed and not creating the kind of businesses that we want to be growing, because usually most people start their own businesses for the sense of freedom and ownership over what their days look like. But it's really easy to hand all of that away when you don't know how to say no.
Yeah, that's so huge. And I think the first one you talked about of like, when we say yes out of fear or obligation, we end up feeling resentful. Something to remember there, you guys, is when you're feeling resentful towards this person you said yes to, because you're like, oh, I need to say yes because, you know, they really need to collaborate. They really need my service. They really want this. You end up not actually serving them in doing that when you end up just being resentful. And it ends up being like a lose-lose, because you're making, it's like a lose for them. I've thought about that before when taking on like a project that's like something you wouldn't normally do in your business, but this person really, really wants you to flex it. And you're thinking, I'll serve them in this way, but you end up not really serving them well because you're resentful.
Yeah.
So that one's so huge for business owners.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so what you can do to counteract that, instead of believing that you can't say no, is really, well, for one, not letting your default just be an automatic yes. Actually give yourself a little margin to think about it and really walk through whether or not it's the best use of your time and energy right now in this season. What might be a great opportunity for you a year from now doesn't mean that it's the best thing to do today. Another question is, by saying yes, if I say yes right now, what will I be saying no to? It's important to be truthful and honest with yourself about that and decide whether or not that trade-off is worth it to you. And then asking why. Why do I feel called to say yes? And be honest, because this is the part that will acknowledge, is it because you feel like you might never get this opportunity again? Is it because you feel like, how could you say no because of who it is who's asking it of you? Is it because fear? Is it because you just want to be someone who is building a relationship by saying yes to the other person? Being mindful of your reasons is critical, and it gives you a lot of insight into what's driving you, where your priorities are at a certain time.
And that goes back to the whole concept of like, do whatever you want, but like your reason for why you're doing it. So if it's saying yes, and it might create like a more hectic schedule for you in some way, but you really are like, yeah, I'm all in on why I said yes to this, then that's fine. But if you don't like your reason, then don't do it. And this also made me think of this quote. I just looked it up. That Warren Buffett said. I read this in my Full Focus Planner the other day, but he said the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. So that kind of goes back to what you were saying of like, don't make your automatic answer to everything like be yes as like your default. Instead, make it more of like, maybe no's your default, or or it's more of a decision in your mind every time.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like the ability to say no is one of the great skill sets to really become really good at. I think I have a whole podcast episode about what it looks like to say no and feel good about it, and to really kind of own that.
Okay.
That's just such a key to showing up how we want to and feeling really good about the decisions that we're making. And kind of to go off of what you said, I share that with clients too, that I believe that we're the own expert in what's best for us and our lives and our businesses. And there is no right or wrong decision. But if you're going to say yes, like your reason.
I love it. Okay. These were so awesome. And we'll link, Becky, if you tell me what episode that is later, we'll link to that episode she's talking about in the show notes. So you guys can go get more on saying no, because I think that last one is really huge. That's also been really huge in my life. So that was very impactful. Okay. This was amazing. So you guys, to close us out, Becky, first, I want to ask you a couple rapid fire questions so people can get to know you a little bit. So just whatever, comes to mind for these. So first question, what are you reading right now?
Okay, so normally I do a lot of reading for fun. I read every night before I go to bed, and I make my way through quite a few books. But this year, I am, for the first time, reading through the Bible in a year, and it literally is taking place of a lot of other reading that I've been doing. So I have stayed on track every single day in this year so far. I just finished 2 Kings, so I'm getting ready to move on. But I have read a bit, and I think the last book I finished is a book called Presence, and it's by a researcher, a scientist. Her name is Amy Cuddy, and she has a really well-known TED Talk. And basically the premise of this book is all about confidence and how it relates to body language and how we show up physically, what our bodies tell us about how we're showing up. And I love the mix of like psychology and applying that to real life mindset stuff. And so it was really fascinating. So that was, the book was called Presence, and Amy Cuddy is the author.
Okay, awesome. We'll link to that. And are you, for reading the Bible through, are you doing a chronological Bible, or are you doing like where you read some New Testament, some Old Testament? That's what I did last year.
Yeah. So I am following a reading plan by the creator of the planner I use, and the author, she's an author as well, and her name is Jane Johnson. And basically my planner every day has my reading assignment for the day as well. Mostly it's been chronological. Her planner, by the way, is called Dear Monday. And so it's a combination of a time management planner, a devotional, and a Bible reading plan all in one. It's amazing.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Okay, we'll link to that too in the show notes for you guys.
And
that sounds really intriguing.
It's mostly chronological, but also like I'm into like Psalm 107. So it's like so far it's been like Old Testament every day, but then read 2 or 3 Psalms, Old Testament Psalms. So it's kind of a mix.
That's cool. I like that. Okay, next question. What's your favorite day of the week?
Yeah, when I was younger, I always remember loving Fridays because I feel like it was like the end of the school week, which I loved school, but I also liked wrapping the week up and looking ahead to the weekend. But I was thinking, I feel like it's shifted to Sundays now. Maybe it's because I have a family, but that's the day I feel like starting off our day together, going to church, and like that, I love the intentionality and just starting our day in that way all together. And then it just really is the first day of a new week, which I love, thinking about what we're going to be doing, what my intentions are for that week. So I am going to go with Sunday.
I love that. That's a good answer. Okay, what's your favorite way to exercise?
Dance cardio.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Do you have any videos you're doing or anything like that?
I'm just sharing all the things. I subscribe to a membership that's called Shine Dance Fitness. And even before we kind of had to work out from home, I was already doing that because I don't love being someone who works from home. I don't like using the time to drive back and forth to the gym. And so I like working out from home anyway, but it's a membership and I love it. They use really popular music. I have a background in dance, so that's fun, but it's not that you have to be a dancer by any means to do these routines, but it's just fun. That's my favorite way to work out.
That's so cool. I love that. I love doing fitness videos occasionally for a work break, which probably looks hilarious to anyone that drives by our house and can see me through the window. Yeah. But that's a great way to get moving when you've been sitting all day.
Yes.
So I love that. Okay. Last question. What's a favorite scripture Bible verse that you would give us that's something you come back to often?
Yeah. Ephesians 3:20 is actually a big reason why I named my podcast Beyond Happy. And when I think back to now to him who's able to do far more abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us, it speaks so much to really the overarching theme that I'm helping my clients with, no matter what their unique circumstances look like, is learning how we can live beyond our circumstances, what that looks like, what that means, and why it matters.
Okay, that's amazing. I love that. And we'll put that verse too in the show notes. Okay, Becky, this is amazing. Tell everyone where they can find you and where they should connect with you.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Beyond Happy, and you can find it really anywhere you listen to your podcasts. My website is beckyhoschek.com, and I also am on Facebook under my name, as well as my Instagram handle is at Becky Hoschek.
Yes. So you guys got to check all that out. And yes, definitely check out Becky's podcast. It's edited by the same person who edits this one, Natalie, which is fun. And it's just really, really great content. And you need to go check out her website as well, so you can see all the good stuff there and see a website template in action.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would just say my passion is really helping women called to all the different things in life. I love helping them create a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. And in a world where we see the highlight reel on everyone's social media, I think that it's a bigger problem than many of us openly speak about. And just being able to serve women and help them feel better so that they can show up and do the work they're called to and really be the wives, the moms, the humans with such value to contribute to the world is really what drives me. And I'm just so honored to help in any way I can.
I love that. You said that so well.
Thank you.
Yes. And you're so amazing at what you do. So thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform, where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.